welcome to my first Trident Talks episode. For those who don't know me, I'm Gareth Davies. I've been doing defensive and offensive security recruitment over the last 4 years or so. We're joined by Vaughan Carey, SOC Leader at CloudGuard, who is joining to discuss the past, present, and future of SOC and how entry-level candidates can stand out in the job market. So with that, Vaughan, do you want to give me a bit of a quick overview of your career and what you're doing now?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Gareth. My name is Vaughan, SOC Leader as CloudGuard. As Gareth mentioned, I've been working in cybersecurity for just over 6 years. Went to university, did a cybersecurity degree, and then from there got my first role as a SOC analyst, and then grind my butt off as a SOC analyst. Went from SOC 1 to SOC 2. All your typical analyst duties, incident triage, threat hunting, dabbled a bit of mentorship as well. Moved on to level 2, then up to a senior SOC analyst when I joined CloudGuard. And then after some time at CloudGuard, got promoted to SOC Leader. So now I oversee all the SOC operations functions for CloudGuard AI, how we can automate workflows, leverage artificial intelligence to help keep our SOC small in terms of manpower, while maximizing the automation output to pass those savings down to our customers.
Cool. And if we have a look at the current state of the SOC as it is today and how it's evolved over the past X amount of years that you've been in security, what are the biggest differences between being part of your SOC today versus 5 years ago, for example?
Yeah, so asking that question makes me think back to when I first started as a SOC analyst. There was a lot of these low-level activities and tasks knocking about. I remember my first day on the job, I was sat there reviewing logs for baseline activity for failed login attempts. That sort of activity is 100% automated end to end nowadays. You can not only leverage automation and artificial intelligence, but it's just not as much of a requirement for analysts anymore to be looking at these types of baselines with the introduction of new tools and technologies. So coming through to present day, a lot of those tasks have been remediated and gotten rid of already, all leading all the way through to nowadays. At CloudGuard, we're even going as far as having those more complex incident types and having those triaged by artificial intelligence end to end in terms of acknowledgement, triage, all the way as far as escalating to a customer to let them know what activity has been observed and closing the incident, and then further on into what we call phase 4 activities of actually implementing the remediations as well. So if, for example, a firewall has been logged and it's seen a malicious IP address, sending packets or attempting to exploit a vulnerability, our automation can even go as far as identifying that activity and putting the firewall block in to prevent that activity from persisting.
Yeah, I suppose that was going to be my next question. With obviously the increase in complexity and scale of cyber threats, those are kind of the main changes that you've seen in threat detection methods as well, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure. Threat detection is it's a weird kettle of fish, right? There's a lot of different ways of doing it. How we're trying to take a lot of that manual workload away from our analysts is by gathering those incidents, your lows and your mediums that are taking the biggest amount of time sink, and trying to wrap AI and automation around those, because there's always going to be repeated easy type triage steps or tasks that you're performing for these. It's often a repetition game rather than a problem solving task, similar to those tasks I mentioned I was doing 5-6 years ago in terms of log analysis. It was very repetitive, it was very boring, the days took forever, and it's very similar now for my guys in the SOC today, and the way we're implementing artificial intelligence and automations to remove those more medial tasks, I guess. Really frees up their workload and allows them to be working on the more exciting stuff, the stuff they want to work on, and also passing that value back to our customers in terms of fast response times and more high value content going to them in terms of tuning, threat hunting, new detection creations, all that good stuff.
Is there still value in traditional detection methods, or are they obsolete?
I think there's always going to be capacity when you say detection methods in terms of analysts working incidents. I don't think we will ever get to a 100% automated SOC or 100% AI driven SOC. How we're kind of tackling it at CloudGuard is we're trying to sweep up the lows and the mediums and kind of leave all the highs for the analysts to work because they're the ones with security expertise. They're the ones that understand the attacks. We want them using that mental energy on the highest impact incidents, so the things that have the biggest potential to affect our customers. So as they're working more of those highs, they're going to identify opportunities to maybe bring in a little bit of AI there, a little bit of automation there to make some of their day-to-day workflows a little bit easier in terms of triage, like gathering
Yeah.
information and cross-checking against different sources.
Right.
But I'm not sure whether we'll get to a 100% automated and AI-driven SOC, in all honesty.
What part of automation have you seen that has had the biggest impact across your business?
In terms
Stock related,
of,
of course.
yeah, I mean, we're implementing automations and AIs in lots of different areas. Obviously, we've kind of mentioned the incident triage and the escalating to customer. That's probably one of our biggest time saves at the moment, trying to give that time back to the analysts. But we're even going as far as trying to automate and use AR to feed our quality assurance testing for security incident tickets. So when the guys are writing up their notes and sending those notes out to customers, we're feeding that through AI to gather insights and improvement mechanisms. And then that's feeding that information back to our guys to give them updates and real-time feedback saying, you know, you could have changed the grammar here slightly, or have you thought about this triage type to add to
Yeah.
bolster the note? Really trying to reinforce that positive customer experience.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So it helps with the hard skills, but it also helps with the soft skills as well, right? From a report writing
Yeah,
perspective.
absolutely.
Is there a specific attack, a specific like type of attack that AI is better at detecting, or is it, or do you see it as a kind of a more of a broad solution?
Personally, I see it as quite a broad solution. AI and automations are quite versatile. It really depends on the mind and the building behind it. It can do a lot of things. It also struggles at a lot of things, but I really believe personally they can kind of be woven into what you need it to do. Of course, it has some constraints and others we're still trying to break, but I think it's good across the board as long as it's built in the correct way.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. And how important do you think it is for the SOC analyst, especially to understand how automation tools work, or is it more about them using them effectively?
Um, I kind of got two thought processes on this. There's kind of the automation and understanding of automation, and then the understanding of AI. So automations is simple, logical steps. Well, I say simple, it's the logical steps and logical workflows, right? That's how you get from point A to point B to point C. I think that's what goes on inside of all our heads. So I think it's absolutely beneficial for an analyst to understand automated workflows because I think that only improves their own personal thinking of how you go from decision A to decision B, and maybe there's a condition to go here or there. And then that'll help give them skills as well to improve their own analysis and career prospects going forwards as well, opening up other opportunities towards like security engineers and all that type of stuff. In
Okay.
terms of understanding AI, I don't think AI is going anywhere. With the implementations of different LLMs now, I think, and one thing that we're teaching to our empirical training mentees is AI is going to be there and it's going to be around for analysts for a long time coming. So it's really important to understand how to use it as a tool and not as a crux or a stick that you're relying too much on to do the analysis for you, so that it makes you a better analyst rather than replacing your responsibilities and leaning on AI.
Sure. And what would you say to those that are worried about the potential for AI to be fooled by sophisticated excuse me, adversaries?
Um, I think it's always a possibility. It's a constant reiterative process of getting feedback and improving. In cybersecurity, I definitely think it's a cat and mouse game. So the defenders are always chasing the attackers. The attackers are always trying to think of ways to bypass a defender's detections and capabilities. So I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't happen and is happening at the moment, but it's just how the defenders respond and bounce back and reiterate to make sure that those patches get solved, which the security community is great at in terms of feeding back information, working together and collaborating to try and patch any holes that are made visible.
Yeah, cool. And also, I know that you mentioned, one of your first days on the job was like scouring through logs and whatever, right? And obviously, these days, I suppose that SOCs, a SOC or most SOCs are still struggling with staffing and skill shortages, especially with the need for ticket monkeys term gets thrown
True.
about,
Yeah.
and that role being eradicated, right? So, what skills do you think that SOC teams need today, or entry level SOC analysts that are looking to pursue a career as a SOC analyst?
hmm I do think that these more ticket worker type roles are going to kind of be phased out, not in full absolution. Like I mentioned, there's always going to be the higher severity incidents, but I really do believe that these roles are going to kind of go down more than two routes, but two routes I see clearly at the moment, which also means the job spec and the requirements for these roles is going to get harder over the next few years. And those two roles I naturally see the SOC analyst going down is one, a threat hunter type role. So focusing more on that proactive detection, doing the hunts, trying to find the threats that have fallen between the cracks of the detections. And then the security engineer type role as well. So setting up seams, configuring, creating those detection rules. I naturally see the SOC analyst role leading down those two paths. So for anyone out there that is either worried about their role or want to kind of future-proof their role, definitely start thinking about those kind of extracurricular tasks that a SOC does. Could be vulnerability analysis, could be, like I said, detection creation. Try and dabble in those and learn those to future-proof your role and increase your job prospects.
And where can people go to work on them type of skills? Because without that commercial experience, it's can often be quite difficult to
Mhm.
obtain that sort of skill set, right? So where can people go in order to try and upskill?
Yeah, I don't think there's one sole place to learn all of these things. Obviously, with our empirical training community, we try and put as much of that together for our mentees as possible in terms of breakdowns and step-by-step projects, giving the insights as to why they're relevant for a SOC analyst. But anyone that has the internet, ChatGPT, search out the roles of a SOC analyst and the responsibilities and other roles in cybersecurity. You can simply type in something like create me a project that teaches me how to threat hunt, and I'll dictate a step-by-step project for you, along with all the tools. Sometimes includes the links to the resources as well that you need to download. And that can be a great proactive way to try and stay ahead of the curve and make sure that you're doing something to benefit yourself going forwards.
Yeah, cool. Okay, going back to kind of AI within the SOC space, then predictive analytics is a bit of a buzzword, right? What role will it play in the next 5 years, and how might they help SOC anticipate and prevent threats before it happens?
Mm. Uh, It's definitely a buzzword. Personally, I haven't seen a super successful implementation of it just yet. A lot of things I'm seeing with these predictive type incidents is a lot of false positives, a lot of baselines that are maybe too low. So I haven't seen a super successful implementation just yet. Using some EDR tools, I've had experience with SentinelOne. That does seem to be quite useful. But in terms of SIEM solutions and more static analytical rules, I've really struggled to see the super benefits of predictive type stuff yet. So I definitely think that it prospers in more EDR type tools, but for your typical SIEM based solutions and static analytical rules, I'm yet to see a super successful implementation.
I assume you can't see a world where predictive models are central to a SOC workflow. Then
I'd like to
not
see it.
yet.
Yeah, I'd like to see it. I think it is possible that we get there eventually, but in order to feed those predictive models, there's going to have to be some sort of massive big data influx, right? Whether
Yeah.
you're buying that data, you have a massive corporate company that you have the data of to feed. Might be possible. Maybe some of these larger threat intelligence corporations that have all this big data are the ones that build the rules and feed that as some sort of solution to SOCs. But for your typical SOC, unless you're a massive corporate SOC that has a lot of free resources and facilities, I think it'll be a lot harder for the smaller SOCs to keep up.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fine. And then to my next point, autonomous instant response. Do you think do you think systems can do like self-healing and respond autonomously to certain types of instance, or is this like very far in the future and you just can't see it right now?
No, I don't think so. In terms of machines doing it themselves, I'm not sure about that. But we already have implemented at CloudGuard like I mentioned, the instant triage process. If it's been identified that an attack is successful, it's pulling out the related entities. So maybe that's a user or a device, and then our automation and AI is already going and remediating that. So, things like isolation the devices, flushing credentials, sorting the user out, deleting files, all these types of things is already being implemented with our automated incident response at CloudGuard already.
Well, okay. To be honest, I didn't know it was. I didn't know it was a thing. That yeah, the systems in place at the moment to
So
kind of do
what's
that
next?
self
That's the
healing.
question.
Yeah. That was going to be my next question. Is what is next then? Like, how much can the SOC evolve over the next 5 to 10 years? And what areas do you think that it's got the most potential to evolve?
It's a really great question, and one I do spend a little bit of time thinking about because of my more strategic role at CloudGuard. But I really do see as we progress over the future, SOC analyst roles becoming a lot more, I don't want to say niche, but there's a lot less responsibilities in terms of that lower level stuff. And I do naturally see people going more into these SOC engineering type roles or security engineering type roles, only because there's going to be a lot of requirements for like workflow configuration and maybe AI type changes or seam creation or tuning these types of activities. So I do really see SOC analysts capabilities of troubleshooting and problem solving, starting to lean more into, like I said earlier, either threat hunting type roles if you really like that proactive defense approach, or into the more configuration side and the security engineering.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. And then historically, right, if you wanted to become a SOC analyst, it really helped if you had strong networking skills, right? But with automation and AI on the horizon, what do you think you value more? Do you think there is more of a weight now going towards like programming skills that can help automate repetitive tasks, or do you strongly believe that strong networking skills is the base to every good SOC analyst?
That's a really great question, and one I've thought about but haven't put much thought into. I've been speaking with my fellow mentors at Empirical Training about the future of the SOC analyst and what that is actually going to entail in terms of responsibilities and kind of this symbiosis with AI and how does that look, and do people coming into the industry need to know this more foundational stuff, or is having an LLM like ChatGPT or whatever give you the answer sufficient? Um, for me, I'm a bit more of a traditionalist. I do think that networking is needed only because if you understand that foundational knowledge, your problem solving skills can be based on that rather
Mhm.
than seeing an LLM response at face value and assuming that is truth, right? So I definitely think that having that understanding allows you to put more of your own creative problem solving spark on it. So I think yeah,
Yeah.
those more natural fundamentals I do think will be relevant personally.
Yeah, I think we discussed this previously, haven't we, in previous conversations where people see as L1 SOC analyst role as an entry level role, but actually
Hmm.
it's not. It's probably a second or third job that you get within the tech or IT space. You probably start off in a network or an infrastructure
Absolutely.
to gain that experience of how everything works. And then it gives you a better understanding of actually why do I need to secure this? Okay, well, this is what we're doing, this is what it's preventing. And you've got a much broader knowledge of why everything works the way that it does, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like for our mentees, we always recommend having at least 1 to 2 years of IT fundamental experience first before coming to us to transition into cyber, whether that's IT help desk or frontline support. And the way I kind of convey this to the people in our community is if you're trying to go straight in and learn like the attack methodology behind certain networking protocols, you're going to really struggle to understand why those protocols are there in the first place. So not to bore you, Gab, but things like networking protocols, you got your TCP, UDP, FTP type stuff, HTTP, all those function normally for networking communications, but only when you understand those as a fundamental can you then understand why a certain attack works against it. So if you're trying to start off with why the attack works, you're going to struggle. You need to know why it works in the first place normally first.
Yeah, and you mentioned TCP and UDP there. It's actually one of the questions that I would ask a L1 SOC analyst to try and understand what their broad level of knowledge is around networking. Can you tell me the difference between a TCP versus a UDP handshake, for example? And
Yeah.
if they can't tell me that, then the chances are they're probably not ready for this type of role, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We put a poll out on our Empirical Training Instagram stories a couple of days ago. There was a question asking for video calls, is that done over TCP, over UDP, or over UDP? And the split was 60-40 in the wrong direction. Most people voted TCP compared to UDP. So it just goes to show that there is still a disparity between knowledge for some
Yeah.
of these more common fundamentals.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see a lot of people like will take part in like CTFs or hack the box and stuff like that, right? Is that just a fun activity, or do you generally believe that there's a place for that within SOC roles? Like, does understanding that and participating in them type of things, does it help you achieve that L1 role that you're looking for?
I absolutely think that it is worthwhile having those experiences and going through the CTF type approach. Not well, the skills are transferable, but I do think that it builds more of a problem solving mentality and trying to think on your feet. How can you go, in this angle, you didn't find anything. Okay, what's next? You're going over here and looking at something else. That's very relevant for a SOC analyst as well. When you're doing the triage of an incident, you might go down some rabbit hole trying to figure out if this is, malicious or benign. Doesn't turn out it's true. Okay, quick, you need to pivot and go somewhere else. So I do think it builds great soft skills, and the actual hard skills you learn doing it as well can be transferable. I do think too.
Cool. Okay. And I suppose, more from a networking perspective then and getting to know people in the industry. When you started off, did you have a mentor? Because I know you do the Imperial Training and stuff at the moment, right? And that's geared more towards like mentorship and stuff like that. Did you have a
Yeah.
mentor starting out, or did you raw dog it?
So when I first tried to get into cybersecurity at university, or while I was in university, I was applying. I did struggle to get my first role, but I had one of my university lecturers as kind of a mentor type figure, and they was the one that helped me end up landing that first role.
Okay, yeah, so that's a great point, right? Because obviously I've been a recruiter now for the best part of 4 years, and in that 4 years, I've only ever been given one pure like a junior role that required zero security commercial
Mhm.
experience, right? And I get people messaging me daily asking if I've got entry level roles. And because there are so many people that want to get into these roles, there's actually more applicants than there are jobs.
Yeah, I'm
So in
sure.
that instance, a client doesn't need me because they can fill the roles themselves, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the points that I give to every candidate that messages me is that the chances are you're going to have to find your own role through networking. So turning up to B-sides, security events, that type of thing, and building your own network.
Hmm.
And I found that, especially in security, people are quite helpful, right? If they can help
Yeah.
you and introduce you where you can, then it's they don't just turn you away and be like, "Oh no, wait, go away!" Like I'm too busy. It is a community that is, quite helpful, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like one of the perks of our community is there's four people running it, right? All people that know each other, we're all experienced in cyber. We all have our own networks and our connections, so our community absolutely gets the benefit from that. When any of us have a role or know someone with a role, you get in kind of four times the output, right? Because there's so many connections there, and yeah, our community absolutely benefit from that in terms of having opportunities kind of thrown at them, really.
Yes, yeah, yeah, absolutely. And obviously, a lot of the junior folks that message me will ask me questions around what certification should I aim to get to kind of build my CV. If you
Mhm.
were starting again, what certifications would you aim for? That not just like demonstrates knowledge, but also you can do the hands-on practicality type work as well.
Yeah, and I get asked this question all the time, and my honest first answer is it depends. It depends on your background, it depends on your experience. I'm really not a fan of people giving an answer to that straight away. Obviously, there's the good foundations, but it really depends kind of where you've come from in life, what experiences you have. Do you have an IT background? Do you not have an IT background? Because that's going to depend on the answer. However, one certification that I do always shout from the rooftops about as being an absolutely great certification for any SOC analyst is little bit more of an advanced one, but it's one I've recommended to all my analysts at every company because it makes them useful in an instant response engagement. So if one of our customers do get breached, they can absolutely help us out, and then that's another pair of hands to help you and another brain, right? And that
Okay.
certification is the Security Blue Team Level 1 certification.
Okay. Okay. So is that something you can pick up without any commercial experience? Like if you had no commercial experience in a security setting, could you do the Security Blue Team one and think and you know have a good chance of passing it, or do you think you need that commercial experience?
I, in terms of commercial experience, I do think you need earlier experiences, whether that's your IT fundamentals, whether that's some sort of cybersecurity fundamental background in order to do and pass the blue team level 1. But that's taking into account that you already got a SOC analyst role. So I guess the easy answer for anyone that wants to, start off in cyber, whether you have IT fundamental background or not, you can't go wrong with the CompTIA trifecta: A plus, Network plus, Security plus. They're probably the
Yeah.
ones for your average Joe. Do they
Mhm.
have IT experience? Do they not have IT experience? They're probably the three that you want to try and secure.
Yeah, sure. From experience, the CompTIA don't necessarily get you the job. The CompTIA usually gets you a foot into the interview process, right? That
Yes.
okay, he's got a base understanding. Oh, they've got a base understanding of, what X, Y, and Z does. They proved it because they've got the certification. That person is worth interviewing.
Yep.
It's not so. I see that it's not a certification that they get to a final interview and think, oh, we have to hire this guy because he's got the certification. It's more of they understand the fundamentals.
Yeah, and one thing that we've been speaking to our mentees about that have these three certifications is you need to bolster your experience as well, right? Exactly like you're saying, Gar, that's not enough anymore to get you your first role. You need more. Maybe it's because the way cyber's evolving and these lower level tasks are now not required as much. So the barrier for entry is getting harder. And one thing I've been saying is I do think it's going to get harder again over the next 5 years. So what we've been telling our mentees to do at the moment is really knuckle down with the hands-on projects. Try and get hands-on building, setting up, training with all the things that can replicate what a SOC analyst does. So set up your own SIEM, ingest your own logs, create a detection rule, triage the detection, create a note response to a customer, do threat intelligence, do perform a threat hunt, try and replicate as much as possible the
Yeah,
known tasks of a SOC analyst, and these can be found on a just job description for an application, right? Try and
yeah,
replicate those. Use ChatGPT to help you. I see threat hunting is a requirement on job application. What project can I do to replicate that as
got that.
someone without a SOC analyst experience? These are all things you can do to be proactive and really bolster your CV with experience that aligns perfectly with the requirements for a SOC analyst role.
Yeah, and that's something that I see a lot of, right, from advice from the folks that have done it. Is that you need to turn up to these interviews. If you don't have this commercial experience, you need to show up to these interviews with proof that you're working on it in the background, even though you haven't landed your first job yet. You're still doing projects on the side, and I've also seen somebody suggest documenting the process as well, like
Yeah,
what you
absolutely.
learned, where you went wrong, that type of thing, right? And put it in a bit of a report document or some sort of script or formatting or whatever, just to kind of then to be able to show your employer, well, this is a report that I wrote on this project, and then that kind of gives them an idea of, okay, does this person might have the technical skills, but it seems like they've also got the soft skills as well, right?
Yeah, that's one thing we recommend to our empirical training mentees is we call it an evidence portfolio. So as you're doing these hands-on projects, exactly like you're saying, do write-ups. What did I perform? What did it teach me? Where did I go wrong? How did I overcome it? What did I learn? Have those documented for all the different projects. And it could be linked to your CV, it could be sent alongside your CV, and it just gives a hiring manager or a recruiter a really nice snapshot of, yeah, I say I have these skills, but here's evidence of me actually performing them and executing them.
Yeah, to be fair, I think that's great advice, right? It's there is so much competition. You need to do everything that you can to stand out.
Hmm.
You need to be doing these extra things in order to be able to show them that cybersecurity is just not a hobby. Sorry, it's not a 9 to 5 as such. It's a hobby that you're taking serious, and it's something that you're working on even outside of your normal working hours, right?
I do also think that the SOC analyst role, like we spoke about entry level roles and junior roles, because there is such a lack of them, I do think there's going to come, well, it's already happening, a bit of a point where people that want to get into cyber, they can't really afford to go in for junior roles. They kind of need to self-skill up to the level of a SOC 1 analyst, which is why we're saying and recommending to learn all the tasks of a SOC analyst, right? Because people want experienced people. Like, a lot of organizations want to bring someone in, sit them down on day one, and by week 8 they're ready to go, right? They don't want to have to teach them everything. They just want them to get equipped with their workflows and their processes. So I do think people that want to get into cyber, you probably might need to try and learn the skills just above a junior role, and maybe just a bit less than a level 1 SOC analyst to get yourself in there.
And I know we're running out of time, so Vaughan, I appreciate your insights. We'll call it there, and yeah, hopefully we can get you on again to discuss in the future.
Thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks.